All right, welcome in everybody to the Empty Bottle Sports Podcast. I'm your host Danny, alongside my co-host Zane, and our buddy Corey is joining us as well. We'll kick it off with drinks as always. I got my High Noon Passion Fruit Seltzer with me today. Corey, what do you got in front of you today, my man?
Just running it with plain old water. Gotta rehydrate. The gym got me, and I'm not
Good stuff,
not in
man.
a hurry to dehydrate on a weeknight.
Yeah, good stuff. Awesome to see. All right, ZG, what do you got in front of you today?
Yeah, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I've got just a standard ginger ale, but in a special Chicago Blackhawks souvenir cup. So super excited for that season. But we'll kind of cover that as the season goes on.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking Connor Bedard and the ceiling and floor of the Chicago Blackhawks this season. And Corey, we'll talk about your Red Wings, even though I despise them with every part of
We
my
don't
hockey heart.
we don't have to. There's nothing there.
All right, let's jump into football, though. We'll start off with our headlines. Texas avenges their loss from last year as they go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. Quinn Ewers looked great. He was showing Archie Manning what he could do. Archie Manning? Archie Manning? I forget what the grandson or grandnephew is called. I forgot his first name again. But Texas looked great, and Alabama looked like the Texas of old. It was like they swapped places this week, and we might be seeing Texas turn a new leaf. Corey, what do you think? Is Texas back, or do you think Alabama is just starting to regress to the mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to go all the way to say Texas is back, but they're on the right path. They seem to be turning a page, and we'll see if they're in the correct book or not. I think Alabama is regressing. I'm not going to count them out. I can't count Alabama out of really any game just yet, but seems to be the dominant Alabama of recent years has taken a few steps backwards. So we'll see. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on Texas just yet either, but I think with their schedule remaining, they could run the table.
Yeah, they have a very favorable schedule going into this year. I think obviously Rice is not going to do anything to them, but Baylor, after losing to Texas State at home, they don't look very intimidating anymore. Oklahoma had a very bad down year last year. We'll see if they can bounce back. That's always a close game, but Texas blew them out last year, so we'll see the rest of this schedule. They kind of have a Georgia type schedule where it's not very intimidating. Zane, what are your thoughts on the Texas Alabama game from this past weekend?
Yeah, it was a really fun game to watch. It was low scoring in the first half, and then it just became a really high scoring back and forth offensive matchup. In the second half, um, I'd have to say, if I had to pick one, I think that Alabama kind of let that game go. Texas hung in there. They played aggressive. They played the way that you need to play when you go into a hostile environment like that. But, for as bad as Alabama played, turning it over, two bad turnovers from Alabama, gave Texas plus field advantage. And they were still right there at the end of the game. Texas, put a couple daggers in their back, but they were still in it towards the end. So I'm with Corey. I wouldn't write Alabama off just yet, but at the same time, I don't think we should be that high on Texas. They're known to lose games that they should win, so we'll have to wait and see through the rest of the season.
Yeah, Texas is definitely known for getting some big wins every other year, and then they kind of sputter out, or like you said, Zane, they trip up on a team that they should be. We'll see how they do over the course of an entire season, and we know Nick Saban's the goods, man. He's the best coach in college football. He's going to turn Alabama around, or at least keep them competitive in every single game. So never count him or his program out. Texas, we'll see. We'll see if they can stretch it out over the course of an entire season. Kind of hope so because it's just better for college football. And it'll be making the Big 12 and I guess next year the SEC even more interesting if Texas is. All right, let's switch over to the NFL and let's talk about the biggest news coming out of last night, the Monday Night Football game. Aaron Rodgers, in the fourth or fifth play of the game, tears his Achilles. His first game as a New York Jet after coming over for the Green Bay Packers. The Manning cast could not believe it. New York could not believe it. The Jets had to turn to Zach Wilson to save them, and it ended up great for him. We'll see how it goes over the course of the season. Zane, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers blowing out his Achilles in the first game?
Yeah, definitely really kind of just sad to see. I think just as a football fan, we wanted to see what the New York Jets could do this year, especially seeing how bad the Bills were and then seeing how good the
Yeah.
Dolphins were. And I think the Patriots showed us a lot as well against the Eagles. They hung in there tough. I think that it was pretty sad, not only because Aaron Rodgers is on my fantasy team and I had to go pick up Captain Kirk now. Um, I was just sad as a football fan. I think that team was going to drive a lot of headlines, a lot of excitement for the league. So sad to see as a football fan.
Yeah, they have 5 primetime games this year. With Zach Wilson leading the way, I think a few of those might get flexed for some other games. We'll see if they can keep that streak alive. But yeah, they have a really good roster up and down, and it's sad to see Aaron Rodgers not be able to play. Corey, what are your thoughts on the Jets' outlook for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think we were all really excited to see what that team and that roster could do with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, and not not seeing him under center for the rest of the year is going to hurt a little bit. I think for the entire just NFL fan base. Not to mention my fantasy team as well, Zane. That's QB1 off the board for me, so I've got to go down to Jared Goff, which it's a decent backup, but devastating, really. Had high hopes for the Jets, and I'm not even a Jets fan, but just absolutely brutal and a gut punch for an organization that really, really was riding high on that pickup. And, I think they're going to suffer now.
He even took a play cut for them. He even took a big pay cut, and he didn't do that in Green Bay. Hell no, he didn't do that in Green Bay. He fractured their salary cap in Green Bay. But New York, new team, new city, wanted to show his good graces to the New Yorkers out there, and unfortunately, it's just not working out. So we'll see what next year brings if he comes back next year with the Jets, and we'll see if he can create that same sort of magic that he made in Green Bay. All right, let's flip it over to our My Back Hurts Player of the Week. As always, these players carried their team and they get the backpack for the week. So, to start it off, Zane, who is your My Back Hurts Player of the Week?
Yeah, there was a lot of good candidates this week. I think I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco 49ers. In our pregame on Sunday, every morning, drafts at dawn, we discussed that, hey, it wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers kind of snuck a game here and upset the 49ers, but Christian McCaffrey had other ideas. They were giving him the ball in the backfield, out of the flat, everything. The guy does everything you need him to do. He makes probably any quarterback look really good, right? Whereas I think we're not quite sure about Brock Purdy yet. The sample size keeps getting larger and he keeps playing well. So that's encouraging for the 49ers. But I think they're going to lean on Christian McCaffrey, and they certainly did in week 1. So my back hurts goes to Christian McCaffrey.
Great pick. Yeah, great pick. I think, man, a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans are looking at Kenny Pickett right now and just thinking, oh, man, this is not looking good for the long-term future. We know Mike Tomlin, he's a good coach, but he can only do so much. And I thought that Pittsburgh Steelers roster was better than it showed on Sunday. Now, again, it's only week 1. We'll see how it is over the course of the season. But, man, San Francisco just looked like they did not miss a step in the offseason. They picked up right where they left off. That was a great game by San Francisco. Corey, who you got for my back hurts player of the week? Who are you giving your backpack to?
We're going to run right back to Texas. I'm going to take Quinn Ewers. He didn't look stellar in the first game, but man, did he look – he looked like everything is advertised in that game against Alabama. 3 touchdowns? They aired it out quite a bit. He was 24 for 38. He had 3 tutties, 349 yards, and not one time did he throw it to the wrong team. So no takeaways, at least as far as when the ball left his hands, and that's important when you play a team like Alabama. And I think he really showed up and showed out, and that was a huge win. So I'm gonna roll with him.
Yeah, that was a legacy game for him in Alabama, and he's gonna remember. He comes back to Texas, he's gonna be remembered for that game for sure, 100%. I'm gonna go with Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins wide receiver, 2 touchdowns, over 200 yards receiving, an absolute shootout against the not San Diego Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers now. Still tripping up over myself on that one. He's just been, I just can't believe his speed, man. Just from watching him in Kansas City and that he's just sustained that over the course of so many years now that he's in Miami doing it with Tua. Hopefully, for his sake, Tua can stay healthy because that is a very potent offense, man. It's just so much fun to watch. They're going to be a force to reckon with, and I'm just so glad that they're in the AFC and that the Bears not that the Bears are even looking at the playoffs, and we'll talk about them later. But man, it's comforting to know that there's so many good teams in the AFC, and it's just the Bears just don't have to worry about those juggernauts week in and week out. So that's my backwards player of the week. I like the backpacks we gave out. Not too much. The other one that I thought would be an honorary backpack player would be either Travis Hunter or Shea Sanders for the Colorado Buffaloes. Those guys showed out against Nebraska. Part of that was just Nebraska being Nebraska, so I wasn't sure if I could give those awards to them because Nebraska kind of just chokes games away. That's just what they're good at. But still, those players deserve their props. So props to Coach Prime and his staff in turning that Buffaloes program around. All right, but let's kind of switch it over and talk about our meatball players of the week, meatball plays, players, coaches who just fumble the ball, just decide to mess up the entire game for their entire team and leave the fans in awe of what they just watched. Corey, I'll start it off with you. Who is your meatball play of the week?
Couldn't be more excited for this one. It's the entire Cincinnati Bengals roster, front office, top to bottom. They were not prepared. My Brownies, I believe Jamar Chase referred to them as elves. He is on my fantasy team as well, and if I'm gonna drop a horrible week in fantasy, it might as well be in part due to my Browns just curb stomping the Cincinnati Bengals. And coming off of Joe Burrow signing the biggest contract in NFL history and just sucking up and down the field, Jamar Chase was almost entirely irrelevant in that game and in my week in fantasy. Yeah. You lost to Elves. Season's over. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, we know this show is the Joe Burrow and Bengals bandwagon show, but Zane, you and me talked about it on Drafts at Dawn on Sunday. The Browns just always played the Bengals well, and I know it's a divisional opponent, but really the Bengals have not historically in the past few years in their rise have not played the Browns particularly well, and they've actually lost more games than they've won. And this was kind of like a barometer game, beginning of the season. They can't give up these early games. They're going to be trying to go for home field advantage in the playoffs because they really haven't had that in the past couple of years. So I feel like this one could come back to haunt them. And you're right, Corey. Jamar Chase was talking that talk that week leading up to the game, and oh man, I know the Browns haven't had the playoff success the past couple of years the Bengals had, but any given Sunday, man, it can happen.
Hey, that defense is nasty.
Yeah, they looked
It's not
real
good when Garrett's over the center practicing his crossover right in Burrow's face.
No, that looks like a JV team for a lot of those plays. All right, ZG, who you got for your meatball play of the week?
Yeah, my meatball play actually is going to go to, going to throw it back to college here. Number one, Ball State playing two SEC schools back to back. Don't even know what they're thinking, why they thought that they would even compete for half a quarter. Lost to Kentucky, but then they went and said, let's go play Georgia, the defending national champions. Quarterback actually threw it off his receiver's the back of his foot. His receiver wasn't even looking. Threw it off the back of his foot, popped up in the air, interception. Not that we had any hope to win that game, but that's just one of those where you're like, yep, that seems about right. And it's just, we did actually lose a couple good players last year. So this year, starting off against Kentucky and Georgia, it just feels like a complete demoralizer.
Yeah, but Zane, even though they lost a couple players, I don't think they're a couple players away. I think
they were right there. They were knocking on the door.
Away.
Come on, Danny. You know if they play Georgia 10 times, they win the other 9.
Georgia was sweating in the pregame locker room, wondering what they were going to do about that potent Ball State offense.
Yeah, they were calling us L's, man. We were ready.
All right. That's great. Good pick. Good pick. All right, I'm gonna go with the Bills punter on Monday Night Football as Xavier Gibson. Let me make sure I get that right, so I don't butcher it. Yeah, Xavier Gibson of SF Austin. I don't even know where that school is, but Austin Xavier Gibson, New York Jets punt returner takes it all the way back for the walk off in overtime against the Buffalo Bills, and man, that place was just a madhouse. But my meatball play, it was 1v1, Bills punter and Gibson. There was nobody else. It was just those two. What does the Bills punter do? He almost dives out of the way of Gibson as he's running by, and as he's running by, he tries to push him down, yet his body is already at a 45-degree angle as he's falling to the ground, and as he tries to make the tackle by trying to push, and almost just like he was just pushing off as in trying to just, please don't hit me, I'm trying to save my body here. Man, tomorrow, actually today, when they go into film room, oh, he's just going to get reamed out. I just know he's just going to be in the back corner as the rest of the team just watches him just absolutely just let the guy walk on by. Just let him walk on by. At the very least, you got to just like put a shoulder on the guy. You're not going to tackle him. You're the punter. We know that. But man, that was just embarrassing at all levels. He's got to go back to Pop Warner to learn some of those fundamentals because that was just disgusting.
I mean, there were 10 other guys on the field that let him get there. Come on.
That's true. But when you have a one-on-one and it's just you and him, you got to just like go horizontal or something to just take up space to just slow him down or something so that somebody could try to catch up and knock him down at the 4 or 5 yard line. Because man, that poor guy. I mean, the one little hope that Buffalo had, the Buffalo punter just kind of pissed it away. All right, so that's our good meatball plays of the week. I like those picks. College and pros, we switched it up, and we'll switch it up again next week. Let's switch over to our teams. We kind of already talked about the Browns. Corey, look good week one. Look good week one, especially against your divisional opponents. So props to you guys. But what I think there's a lot more topic of discussion, unfortunately, is the failure of Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears offense and defense, too. And this the ineptitude that has just continued since last season. Honestly, it looks like the exact same thing from last season, and we were told that they had a better roster, and yet that's what they brought. Very disappointing. Zane, as you're a Bears fan, just like me, what are your initial thoughts and takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I think my panic meter 1 to 10 is maybe a 4. Not too high. Let's not take too much stock into week one. I know we love overreaction Monday and Tuesday. What I think was unfortunate, we couldn't get DJ Moore involved. We only had 5 rush attempts with Roshan Johnson. The Bears just don't really have an identity, and the only thing that creates a spark is Justin Fields scrambling for his life, and that's just not a recipe for consistent success. And it's really, I know there's no film on Jordan Love, but it was really disappointing at home season opener to see the Bears come out flat like that. I think we need to see significant improvement in terms of scheme, offense and defense, or it's going to be a long season. You already got the Lions who won their first game and the Packers who won their first game. We're pretty lucky the Vikings didn't win their first game as well. So not time to hit the 10, but it was definitely a disappointing game for sure.
Yeah, very disappointing considering that you're playing your rival week one. You know Aaron Rodgers is gone. This is your time to make a name for yourself in the division. Take that next step. The division's wide open, right? Once Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, the division's for anyone. I know the Detroit Lions had a really good end of the season, and the Vikings are always kind of there, but really, it's up to any team to kind of just take a stranglehold on a division and just hold it. And the way Jordan Love played, it seems like they're not going to let it go anytime soon. It's disappointing because you had so much time in the offseason to prepare and you decided to not play your players a lot during the preseason games and a lot during mini camp, OTAs, training camp against the other teams, and it showed. And that's kind of what you get when you don't play your players. Corey, as an impartial observer, I was a Browns fan, but you watched a lot of football. What were your initial takeaways from the Bears? Just not even this week one, but just kind of the approach that they've taken and the progress or lack thereof from last year to this year.
Yeah, I am fairly impartial about this. I really don't. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other so much, but I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that locker room after that game because I'm hitting the panic button. There seemed to be zero preparation for that game, and you made a good point. We don't know a lot about what to expect out of Jordan Love, but I mean the Bears, they looked lost. They looked like they didn't want to be there half the time too, and that's not good when you play your division rival, your biggest rival, and they just come out and they continue to just dominate. And you're right. I mean, they have to have Fields scramble to get any kind of excitement on the field, to have any kind of success. And he actually has some weapons and tools now. And it's like, did they not scheme up any kind of electric play? Like, that's a big game to drop at the beginning of the season. And I don't know. We know that having faith in the Bears front office is a scary idea. And it doesn't look like they hit any home runs with the coaching staff right now, and I'm hitting the panic button already. I rarely do this week one, but boy oh boy, that's a bad start, and they better hit the ground running this week for practice, and they better be. I mean, you just got to let people start hitting people and get excited about something because right now they got nothing to be excited about.
Corey, I'm right there with you. I'm hitting the panic button. I know it's week one, but you had all offseason prepared. You knew Green Bay was week one at home field advantage. You had everyone hyped about Justin Fields taking his year three leap, and that's kind of what you brought. Are you kidding me? Like the fact that Justin Fields honestly looked like he really didn't make any progress from last year over the offseason. In fact, the team was more competitive last year. I know they lost a lot of games. They went 3-14, but they at least looked competitive. You're like, maybe just like a couple players and this defensive group, this offensive line here, we can really see something being created for the long term. And you thought maybe just a few plays because you were pretty competitive. And then this week, they just looked totally inept in the second half. And even the first half, the offense looked just totally out of it. They were nowhere to be seen. And I thought it was just a complete abject failure up and down across the roster and with the coaching staff. And it really goes to show, Corey, too, with the coaching staffs. You see those winning cultures in San Francisco, Baltimore. I mean, hell, even the Patriots. I mean, this Bill Belichick, you still kind of have some respectability there, despite getting almost blown out by the Eagles. They still made it a close game at the end. I mean, go down. You know those teams that are going to be in there year in and year out, and unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers are one of them, and the Bears are not. It just goes to show, culture-wise, how important that uh, infrastructure is for a team.
Yeah, you got to have culture concerns right now, just across the board.
100%. So hopefully we see some things that are a little bit different week two as they go down to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is also a team that's reeling. Still a lot of veterans from that Super Bowl team, but they're just not the same, almost becoming the shell of what they used to be. But they got a good win against the Vikings this past week. We'll see if the Bears can pull one out because, man, they go to Kansas City the week after that, and they don't. I mean, they could be staring down the barrel of 0-3 start to the season. That would just be absolutely detrimental. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but man, they're going to try to make the playoffs. That's going to be a really tough hole to climb out of.
Keys to that
Zane,
game: don't let Baker run over your secondary. It's
oh
over.
gosh, yeah. If you let him go for like 300 plus and like three tutties, I mean, you should just start tanking for just anyone in Colorado, anyone in Georgia, anyone. I just start tanking because it's just not going to go well. Zane, final thoughts on your Bears, what they need to do in week two to kind of just stay, I don't know, be competitive this year.
Yeah, week two, I think we just, like I said, only 5 carries for Roshan Johnson, so we need to figure out how to scheme up more running plays. That's going to drive the play action, right? That's where Fields is very good. He's electric in the open, but that can't be our staple. That can't be what we're doing to catch people off guard because you can't do that if there's no run game. They've got to scheme up DJ Moore. We know he's an incredible receiver. He's a true number one, something that Justin Fields hasn't had. So we need to, it is it's simple when you peel everything back, right? Establish a run game, be better in the play action. But those two things, we've got to focus on an offensive identity. And if it has to be, even with the addition of DJ Moore, if it has to be smash mouth football and running the football, let's go that. Let's grind away some wins if we have to.
Yeah, if you got to simplify, you got to simplify it. But at the very least, you just got to play good fundamental football, and that's something we did not see this past week. Just go back to the basics, honestly. All right, guys, thank you much for joining. Zane, Corey, it's fun as always. We look forward to doing this soon. We'll have another show up here, preview the weekend slate of games, college and pros. And we'll have some more good content coming your way. And as always, we're on YouTube now, and we're going to be posting back on Apple and Spotify and all those other good audio apps as well. So thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to y'all soon.